Good morning. You're watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. It is Monday, January 5th, 2025. Thank you for watching, sharing, and liking the show. Obviously, we've effectively overthrown the government of Venezuela. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning. I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, we've effectively overthrown the government of Venezuela.
So that happened. Normally these invasions are prepared, John, with a lot of propaganda, right?
Yes.
We both remember the buildup to. I mean, look, I remember being in Afghanistan in late 2001, and I saw a U.S. APC drive by with a sign on it that said "Next stop Baghdad." 2001. We didn't go in until March 2003. All of 2002 was spent ginning up propaganda about weapons of mass destruction and having the New York Times come on board and support all that. And then, by the time that Bush actually went in, it was approved of. Now, of course, obviously it didn't go well, and it turned out to have destroyed his presidency. But it started well, and it wasn't something that he needed to hide. Here, this was basically treated like a holiday weekend media dump. It was done in the dead of night. Basically over the New Year's holiday, wasn't prepared for. There was no propaganda of any import. Basically, we knew this, like you mentioned, and I mentioned this before the show, John, but you very astutely last week pointed out that someone who had trained you at the agency told you very early on that there was that you don't send carrier battle groups and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of personnel, not to mention support personnel, stateside, assigning them to this unless you plan to do something. So it's not a surprise, but it's shocking.
That's exactly the way to say it. Shocked, but not surprised. It's funny. I'm kind of the eternal optimist. I shouldn't be because maybe I would be better prepared for life if I weren't always so optimistic about things. But not only did I know what you just said, I said what you just said.
You did.
If you really want to know if the United States is going to invade a country, look at naval movements. We don't send a carrier battle group if we don't mean business. We sent a carrier battle group, the USS Gerald Ford, and then we overthrew the Venezuelan government. With that said, until the very end, Ted, I was optimistic because I kept telling myself, but MAGA is supposed to be the anti-war party now, right? And that's why I keep saying we need to give these people the benefit of the doubt on this issue of war and peace. Well, no, we don't anymore. And another couple of things too. You look at the responses from Republicans, especially Republicans on Capitol Hill, and they're almost uniform. They're celebrating, practically dancing in the streets over this, led by none other than Her Majesty Lindsey Graham, who is just repeating what he said 23 years ago as we were preparing to cross the border into Iraq. So, is MAGA a real movement? I'm coming to think that MAGA is another temporary flash in the pan, just like the Tea Party was. It came on strong and then it just vaporized. And I also came to the conclusion this weekend that Donald Trump did not create MAGA. MAGA was created around the rise of Donald Trump. Do you remember about a year ago, Ted? Maybe not even a year ago. It was when we were first starting the show. You probably don't remember because it was a minor point. But there was this conversation that we had about a complaint that Marjorie Taylor Greene had made about something that Trump had done. And we were talking about whether Trump was MAGA. So whatever Trump said, that was the MAGA position, or whether MAGA was a movement and Trump was straying from it. I think our answer now is very clear.
Agreed. And it's extremely dispiriting. I mean, I think we and I have alluded to this in the past, right? The Manchus invaded China. 2 generations later, the Manchus were no more because China had absorbed them, right? MAGA conducted a hostile takeover led by Donald Trump of the GOP, but the GOP has now eaten MAGA. Basically, the neocons have won. Look, George W. Bush had other regime change projects that we don't talk about anymore, like the Kyrgyz Republic.
That's right.
Stuff like that. But still, he had 2 main ones, Afghanistan and Iraq. This is bigger if we are to pay any attention to him. The weekend, he basically threatened to attack Iran again. He said, Marco Rubio said, quote unquote, Cuba is in big trouble. Mm-hmm. He said, we have more harsher threats, no more musing against Greenland. It's just that, right? And also Colombia. And the president of the United States, right, a grown man, told the president of Colombia he has to watch his ass. That's a quote.
This is a major U.S. ally, by the way, and those aren't John's words. Colombia has major U.S. ally status, major non-NATO ally status.
So the whole thing is, you and I, neither of us suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. No. And you and I both have been optimistic about this president in certain respects, right? Like certainly not maybe on economic policy or on distribution of wealth or healthcare, but certainly on foreign policy, which is super important. And also, for example, RFK and MAHA and stuff like that. And so, we don't suffer from TDS. We don't. Mm-mm. I'm just going to say this. We haven't talked about this. I think now officially Donald Trump is really dangerous. And at this point, if I'm in the Congress, I'm thinking we might need to impeach this guy.
I don't think that they have the guts.
I don't either.
I'm worried on a number of fronts right now. Like, I'm really, truly, genuinely worried. If you are the president of Cuba, you can't sleep at night the last couple of nights because you're next.
And you're going to, even if we don't invade directly, we're just going to, it's basically an oil embargo.
It's an oil embargo. Now is the time to squeeze Cuba. I think Cuba, this is the beginning of the end for the Cuban government. But then you have to think about what the Iranians must be thinking. The Iranians have to be absolutely panicking right now. First of all, Benjamin Netanyahu was here over the holiday. What the heck did they talk about down there at Mar-a-Lago, where Netanyahu comes out smiling, says it was one of the greatest meetings of his career, flies back, and we invade Venezuela. Not invade Venezuela, but we cross into Venezuela and snatch Maduro. I want to add, too, a minor point. It was Delta Force that was sent in to snatch Maduro. They did so successfully without a single casualty. There were reports that a couple people suffered minor injuries when a bullet struck one of our helicopters. No big deal. As a matter of policy, Delta Force team member identities are classified at the secret level, right? They have to carry out their missions, their duties. They have to do it in secrecy, and so their identities are secret. It was minutes before the leader of the Delta Force team was identified. He was identified, I'm sorry to say this, as Dimitris Kountouriotis, a Greek-American and direct descendant of Admiral Kountouriotis, one of the greatest heroes of the Greek Revolution against the Ottoman Empire. You look at this guy's background, which the Greek press just laid out all over the internet over the last 24 hours. This guy is a Renaissance man. He's a full bird colonel. He looks like he's in his 20s. Obviously, he's not, but he looks like a kid. Full bird colonel, accomplished Finnish carpenter, a beekeeper, raises his own honey.
Of course.
Volunteers to read to underprivileged children in his time off. This kind of guy.
Right.
The Pentagon hasn't said whether all this stuff is true or not, but the Greek media have decided that Dimitris Kountouris is the hero of this thing. And so while the Greek government is saying, you probably shouldn't go out and invade countries and snatch their leaders, but it's okay. We support that you did this, but you really shouldn't, but okay. But at least the guy who did it's a Greek. And there's this celebration in Athens right now. It's killing me. In all seriousness, though, Cuba and Iran should be very, very worried about where this is going. I'm not sure why people are bringing up Greenland again. I mean, I know Trump did. We're not going to invade Greenland. We're not going to launch an act of war against a NATO member country. I think that the idea is that if we bully the Danes enough that they'll just give it up or lease it to us for 99 years or something like that. But I think the focus now should be on Cuba and Iran.
Agreed. Yeah, especially Cuba.
Let me ask you a question too. What do you think this does for Israeli plans vis-a-vis Lebanon?
I mean, it does seem like, Israel is trying to create greater Israel, right? I think the heat is off the Israelis for Gaza now because
without a doubt,
all attention is not on it. In the same way, by the way, we should probably, mention the Epstein files. We're probably not going to be talking about that for a little while either. Yeah. The West Bank is well on the way to total annexation. I think, the Israelis would like to, my theory has always been the Israelis would like to basically occupy the southern third of Lebanon. They don't really need or want the whole thing, but they want that buffer. I think that's their thing. So I think they're going to choose a moment, and I think it's already been greenlit by Trump, and they're going to go in. I mean, it's not the first or the last time, right? I mean, I think Lebanese independence is in real trouble.
I think so too. And this is going to get bigger and bigger because we have now no right whatsoever to criticize China or Chinese moves toward Taiwan.
Or Russian moves towards Ukraine. I'm glad you brought that up because there's been a lot of reporting about how official, basically pro-war, pro-Kremlin Russian news sources have been editorializing, basically about how they don't really approve of the overthrow of Venezuela, which was, a Russian friend. But they're jealous of the way it was carried out, the efficiency, the quickness, the rapidity of this, special military operation, as they kind of jokingly called it. And they, and I think, but this, the subtext here is also, listen, the U.S. has just completely relinquished any right at all to complain about anything we ever do. And, morally, there's no semblance of a moral high ground because, it's one thing to say, well, you guys invaded Iraq 22 years ago. It's another thing to say, you guys just kidnapped a sitting head of state, a couple of days ago. Yeah. So who are you to tell us anything? And they're right.